After suffering a stroke and becoming paralyzed on my right side, I moved in with my son, Jack, and his wife post-hospitalization.
Hey, we're here. Get out.
One day, they invited me for a drive. But when we arrived, it was just a deserted parking lot with an old temporary restroom. I don't need the restroom. I'll wait here," I answered, but they seemed not to hear me and silently dragged me out of the car. Their demeanor was so strange. At that moment, I was paralyzed with fear. Trembling all over, unable to stand, they looked down at me with a smirk. Then Jack's wife, Anna, picked up my cane that I had dropped and threw it off the cliff into the sea with force. "What? Wait! Oh, no!" The cane spiraled down and sank into the sea below in an instant. I had no idea what was happening and just stared blankly at the edge of the cliff.
Happy birthday! It's almost your birthday, so surprise!
They laughed heartily. Then they said, "Make sure you're back by dinner," and drove away. What on earth did I do to them? Would it be easier to just throw myself off the cliff? I couldn't stop crying, overwhelmed by my miserable situation. My name is Mae Johnson. I married in my early 20s and had kids, a very ordinary stay-at-home mom. My children are Jack and my daughter, Holly. Both were healthy and grew up well. But Jack was a bit too wild. Because of that, my husband and I had a hard time raising him. If I took my eyes off him for a moment, he'd be climbing trees or fences, entering someone else's property without permission, eating berries, or trampling through gardens, catching bugs. Moreover, he often forcefully took his friends' toys and broke them. We were constantly apologizing and compensating for Jack's troubles. When he started elementary school, we got calls from the teacher weekly and had to attend special meetings and accompany him to and from school. Fortunately, I was a full-time housewife from that time on, so I thought, it's better than him getting into trouble. He'll settle down when he's older. Thanks to that, elementary school went smoothly, but he still caused trouble playing with friends in the evenings. As he moved into upper elementary, middle, and high school, he increasingly behaved problematically out of our sight. His high school years were especially bad. With frequent nights out, unpermitted stays, fights with students from other schools, and even police issues. When Jack was at home, I worried, what has he gotten into now? And couldn't sleep. Luckily, he didn't turn to crime and managed to graduate from high school. However, after graduation, he didn't go to college and worked various part-time jobs instead. My husband and I worried, will he ever get a steady job? But fortunately, a gas station manager liked his work ethic, and he became a full-time employee. That changed Jack. He became serious and stopped causing trouble. He also moved out at 33 to live with his then-girlfriend, now wife, Anna. My husband and I were grateful to the manager and Anna, relieved that our long years of parenting struggles were finally over. On the other hand, Holly, 6 years younger than Jack, was the complete opposite. While we were busy with Jack, she quietly drew or read books. and when I felt overwhelmed by parenting, she would tenderly comfort me. Even when I felt like a failure and wanted to give up, Holly's kindness made me think, I need to keep going for Holly's sake. To me, Holly was truly a pillar of support. As she reached high school, she began to experience some nightlife. My husband was very worried, but I wasn't as concerned. Because, unlike the perpetually missing Jack, Holly always stayed in touch. Even when she chose to live in a dorm in college, she frequently called and visited home. And when she started living alone after getting a job, she continued to do so without change. Looking back, she was probably worried about us dealing with Jack, who was still living at home at the time. Being the kind soul she was, it's no surprise that Holly met her significant other quickly. He was a guy named Ryan Sanders, her boss at work. After dating for about 2 years, they got married following Ryan's job transfer and moved out of state 4 months after the wedding. She still calls as before, but living far away makes frequent home visits too difficult, so we only see Holly a few times a year now. Learning this, I felt a mix of happiness for her marriage and sadness about her moving away, but I didn't want to hinder her life and silently prayed for their happiness from afar. Jack, who had said he was moving in with someone, lived about an hour's drive from our home, but hardly ever contacted us. We only met during long holidays. More for him to enjoy holiday meals or stay over than to visit us, making me feel like a servant every time. Still, I accepted it happily, thinking at least he was independent and working seriously. Each leading their separate lives, I was enjoying a peaceful life with my husband for the first time in decades. We thought having grandchildren would make life even more enjoyable. But then, my husband collapsed in the bathroom and passed away from a stroke caused by heat shock. Our old house gets extremely cold in the dressing area during winter. I was aware of heat shock risks from TV and used a fan heater as a precaution. But that day, for some reason, the fan heater wasn't on, leading to a drastic temperature change between the dressing area and bathroom, causing his stroke. By the time I found him, he was already unconscious and passed away shortly after. The police later confirmed it was an accident with no foul play involved. I wondered why the fan heater wasn't on, as it wasn't broken. The police suggested it was probably due to him forgetting to turn it on, which is a common oversight. Though I accepted this explanation, I still wondered, wouldn't I notice the absence of the heater's sound if it was off? But dwelling on it wouldn't change anything. So I decided to organize my husband's belongings to cope. I thought it would be straightforward, but the task often brought back images of my husband's fall, filling me with guilt for not noticing the fan heater, and left me in tears. I couldn't make any progress as a result. I was likely depressed at that time. Again, Holly supported me during that period, taking time off work to visit me repeatedly.
Hey, Mom, you don't have to rush sorting through everything. We have plenty of time. Oh, look at this photo. It brings back memories.
She would say that, comforting me with her presence and smiles. Thanks to Holly, I managed to avoid losing myself and came to terms with my husband's death as a tragic accident. Years have passed since then, and I still live alone in our family home. To be honest, living alone in such a big house feels lonely. But I've decided to keep these feelings to myself, considering my age. Then one day, I suffered a stroke caused by heat shock again. Despite my previous doubts about forgetting to turn on the power, I had indeed forgotten it myself, something I never expected. Fortunately, the season was different this time, so my life wasn't in danger. However, being alone meant it took a long time before I could call an ambulance. As a result, I ended up with a severe disability of being paralyzed on my right side. A long hospital stay for brain surgery and rehabilitation was decided, and I asked Jack, who lived nearby, to bring me the things I needed for my admission.
Hospital. How many days? I mean, I've got work, you know.
It's not decided yet, but I think it's going to be quite long. So could you just prepare and bring the admission kit for me, please, Jack?
Well, I'll help if I'm free. Take care, then.
He said that, hanging up the phone abruptly. I sighed deeply, still holding the receiver. If I'm free, is Jack's usual way of declining. When he says that, it's almost certain he won't do anything. Still, I kept calling him repeatedly. I understood Jack's situation, but I couldn't leave the hospital, so I had no choice but to keep asking. After a week of contacting him, Jack finally came around. Thank you, Jack. You really helped me out.
Hey, Mom, is your illness really that bad?
Oh well, yes. It seems there's no prospect of recovery, but it's okay. I'll make sure not to trouble you guys.
Is that so?
Seeing Jack's unusually serious expression made me feel uneasy, as it was hard to imagine him being genuinely concerned about me, especially when he had been so indifferent even when my husband died. After Jack left, I kept pondering why he looked so solemn. Seeing a patient in a wheelchair reminded me he might be worried about my need for care. This realization fit so well, I felt it had to be the right answer. I started thinking about how to live without being a burden to Jack and Holly. Depending on the rehabilitation outcome, it was almost certain I would need further medical care. It might be safer to consider moving into a facility. The only problems were the financial aspects of it and what to do with the house. First, I need to focus on rehabilitation. If I could regain some movement in my right side, it would make my life much easier and reduce the cost of care. Still, that alone wasn't enough, so I thought about discussing the house the next time someone visited. That would probably be in 2 or 3 months, giving me plenty of time to think. The following day, Jack and Anna came to visit together, which was surprising since they never visited unless it suited them. Were they worried about my care, coming to check on my condition? Having had no time to prepare, I made do with casual conversation that day. But then they visited daily, bringing magazines to alleviate my boredom and even flowers. Initially skeptical, by the time my discharge was foreseeable, I felt genuinely touched by their concern. One day, Holly visited after a long absence.
Sorry I couldn't come sooner.
It's okay. You have your job and family. Don't worry about me too much.
Don't say that, Mom. Your family too?
Holly's unwavering kindness soothed me. By the way, my discharge seems near. I'm thinking of moving into a facility.
A facility? What for?
I explained my condition and the idea of moving into a facility to Holly. She was aware of my after effects, but was surprised I considered living in a facility. Then she fell silent. I'm sorry for not saying anything, but living in that house with my condition is difficult, and it's safer in a facility, right?
That's true, but if you're just worried about living alone, why not live with us?
Really? But what would Ryan think?
I don't think he'd oppose it. But yeah, let's discuss it as a couple, and then I'll bring it up again. If you're okay with it, Mom, I'd like to live together with you.
Holly said that, showing me the same cheerful smile she had as a child. To be honest, I wanted to live with them too. But Holly has her own job and family. If I lived with them, I would burden Holly and her husband, Ryan. That thought made it hard for me to simply accept the offer.
Hey, Holly, what are you talking about without asking?
Jack, why are you angry?
At the entrance of the hospital room, Jack suddenly shouted angrily and stormed in, followed by an upset-looking Anna.
Of course, I'm mad. What's all this talk about doing whatever you want? We've been visiting Mom every day.
Jack said that, glaring at Holly with a fierce look. But Holly, being used to Jack's temper, wasn't fazed at all, and retorted with a look of disbelief, "So what?" This seemed to infuriate Jack even more, as he harshly retorted,
That means we have the right to live together. You moved out of state and neglected your parents. Stay out of this.
Jack, moving away was unavoidable for her, so there's no need to talk like that to your sister.
Mom, stay out of this. Listen, Holly, we've been preparing to live with Mom for a long time. So, we're the ones who will live with her. Got it?
Holly and I were both shocked by the claim of preparing to live together. Though they visited frequently, there had never been any talk of living together from Jack and Anna. Not even a question about my discharge date. Anna, is that true? Doubting Jack's reliability, I instinctively asked his wife Anna. She smiled and said, "Of course, we can't leave you alone in this condition." At that moment, living with Jack and Anna seemed almost decided forcibly. Although I felt a bit discontented for not being able to choose my own living arrangements, I believed in their kindness at that time and thought living together would be all right. However, I would come to regret this thought greatly. When I first visited Jack and Anna's house after discharge, I couldn't believe my eyes. Their home, provided by Anna's relative for free, was nearly as old as mine, with many uneven floors and narrow corridors and entrances that made walking difficult. There were clutters scattered everywhere, making it easy to trip, with no handrails and a cramped restroom. The only exception was the bathroom, which was a walk-in unit with no steps and a warm dressing area due to recent renovations. At least the bathroom is safe. I initially fought, but using it with my paralyzed right side was frightening and nearly impossible without a half-filled tub or handrails. In the end, I was resigned to taking showers only, regardless of the season. They said they were preparing to live together with me, but what exactly did they prepare? I wondered to myself as I put up with living in a house that only raised more questions. Perhaps it simply couldn't be helped, as living together was a new experience to us. However, my patience didn't just wear thin. It snowballed into something much larger. Once, I folded laundry for Jack and his wife, both working full-time, thinking I was helping. Seeing this, they bizarrely asked me to help with even more chores.
Take care of the bathroom cleaning, will you? Consider it part of your rehab.
From tomorrow, please take out the trash and clean up because friends are coming over. It's all for your rehab, right?
I kept enduring their constant demands under the guise of rehab. But there's only so much a person with right side paralysis can do. I finally spoke up, asking them to reduce the household workload. But Jack just yelled, "It's your rehab, so stop complaining and just do it." Far from easing, they even made me responsible for the most challenging task, cooking, criticizing me daily for bad and slow meals. I never expected that the two, who were so kind during my hospital stay, would turn so drastically once we started living together. Initially, I thought they were just irritable due to the unfamiliar setting of living together. But as I was yelled at and insulted daily, I began to think maybe my actions were provoking their anger. I felt increasingly cornered, and soon I was jittery at the slightest sound, never finding a moment of peace. How many more years must I endure these painful days? Thinking about the future made me wish I hadn't survived my stroke. My spirit was utterly broken. One day, after living with Jack and his wife for over 6 months, the three of us drove to a nearby supermarket. On the way back, Jack suddenly said, "Hey, as a thank you for all the housework you do, let's go for a little drive." While Anna nodded happily in the passenger seat, I felt incredibly disappointed. A mountain of chores awaited me at home, and I feared the scolding and insults if they weren't completed quickly. But I had no right to voice my opinion, so I just silently gazed out the window. The car drove deeper into a deserted, dimly lit mountain road. Where were we heading? Just then, the view suddenly brightened. We arrived at a desolate parking lot, equipped only with an old temporary restroom, backed by a sheer cliff. It felt like the climax of a suspense drama. Were they planning to take a restroom break? But that old restroom was too cramped for me. I decided to stay in the car, sitting idly.
Hey, what are you zoning out for? We're here, get out.
I don't need the restroom. I'll wait here, I replied, but they didn't seem to hear me and dragged me out of the car. Their eyes were cold and disdainful, as if looking at trash. Overwhelmed with fear, I lost the ability to speak. They forcefully took me to the railing by the cliff's edge. Could they be planning to push me off? A chilling terror seized me, freezing me in place as my whole body trembled. While I stood there, unable to move, they smirked down at me. Then Anna picked up my cane, which I had dropped, and hurled it off the cliff into the sea with force. Wait, oh, no. The cane spiraled down, sinking instantly into the sea below. I was clueless and just stared blankly at the edge of the cliff.
Happy birthday! It's almost your birthday, so surprise!
That was hilarious. It flew off with such force. You were just like yourself back in your track and field days.
That's irrelevant, don't you think? Anyway, we're heading back first. Oh, make sure you're back for dinner. If you need your cane, go fetch it yourself, okay? We won't help. Bye.
With that, they drove off, laughing heartily. Birthday, surprise. This was just cruel bullying. At that moment, my heart was completely shattered. What on earth had I done to them? Would it be easier to just throw myself off the cliff? I couldn't stop my tears over my miserable situation. Reaching into my pouch for a tissue, I saw the charm Holly had given me. Right, I should ask Holly for help. I usually refrained from worrying her, but this time I was desperate. If I could just contact Holly, things might get better. I tried to move toward where people were. But without my cane, I couldn't stand or walk. Looking around for something to use as a cane, I found nothing. Feeling utterly hopeless, a car then entered the parking lot. Thinking I was saved, I desperately called out, "Please help."
Mom?
At the same time I called out, I heard Holly's voice calling me. Holly jumped out of the car and ran to me, embracing me tightly. "Holly, is it really, Holly?"
It's me. I'm so glad you're safe.
It felt surreal, like witnessing a miracle. As the person I longed to see appeared before me unexpectedly, I touched Holly's head, cheeks, shoulders, and hands repeatedly to confirm her presence. "Oh, it's really you. It's really Holly." Holly nodded and hugged me tightly. Then, along with her husband, Ryan, helped me into their car.
We decided to come see you when your location on the GPS hadn't changed for a while, making us worried. What happened?
Well, I explained to Holly and Ryan about being abandoned, and how I felt living with Jack and his wife. I wish I had gone to a facility instead. I regret it so much. As I recalled, tears started flowing again. Holly hugged me once more, comforting me.
You did nothing wrong, Mom. I regret leaving you with my brother. I won't forgive him this time.
Seeing Holly so angry was a first for me, her mother. We decided to go to Jack's house for a confrontation. While driving, I asked Holly several puzzling questions. "Holly, how did you know I was there? And you weren't supposed to visit today, right?"
Well, your birthday was coming up, and I planned a surprise because you seemed down lately.
Holly explained how she ended up rescuing me. We had a tradition of throwing a surprise party for birthdays, though calling it a surprise became a bit predictable. However, the details were always kept secret. I had forgotten about this tradition since Jack and Holly moved out.
And I found your location thanks to the charm I gave you, remember? It has a GPS tracker.
Did you tell me about it? I remember you telling me to always carry it. I realized I hadn't fully grasped the modern features Holly mentioned. But thankfully, I had kept my promise to carry it, which likely saved me. I felt deeply grateful for Holly, who always cared for me from afar. Soon, we arrived at Jack's house. Laughter from inside hinted they were unaware of our approach. Holly, with a fiercer look than before, used the keys I gave her to silently enter the house.
What? Holly, why?
You worthless brother. You're no family. You're such a disgrace.
Holly's fierce demeanor made everyone present recoil in fear.
Hey, what's the deal barging in like this? Mom isn't here right now. Wait, Mom.
Are you kidding me?
My presence stunned everyone. Upon noticing me, Jack and his wife turned pale as if they had seen a ghost. Overwhelmed by the return of my anxiety, I felt unable to stand. But Ryan quickly led me to a chair in the living room. And Holly rushed over, asking if I was okay. The difference between my son and daughter astonished me.
Jack, what is this? How could you make our half-paralyzed mother live in such a terrible place? And what about leaving her stranded earlier? What are you thinking?
Shut up. I don't care about this old hag. I thought by making her work, we'd get the inheritance sooner, but she's useless.
Jack's callous words shocked me, Holly, and Ryan. We were left speechless.
Well, she's still going to the hospital, right? It's about time. We've taken care of her, so all the insurance money should be ours.
Jack boasted, with Anna praising him proudly. Their ridiculous demeanor left me more astonished than angry. But why did the insurance money come up suddenly? When I asked Jack, he said, when you asked for the admission set, didn't you say you needed a stamp? While searching for it, I found your bank book and insurance papers. Anna had told him that relatives who provide care often receive a larger share of the inheritance, prompting their forceful cohabitation plan. Realizing my naive misjudgment, I understood then that their kindness wasn't out of love or concern, but for the money after my death.
I thought I'd get the inheritance soon after hearing about your hospitalization. We panicked when you talked about moving to a facility, and Holly suggested living together. Then you started helping around the house. Are you really sick? When will I get the inheritance?
Jack's harsh words deepened my disappointment. Yet, I saw this as an opportunity. I clarified to Jack that my hospitalization was not life-threatening and my visits were for monitoring, preventive measures, and rehabilitation advice. So I'm still quite fit. Now that inheritance came up, let's clear this up. I'll pass everything, including the insurance and inheritance, to Holly and Ryan.
What? Wait, the inheritance is mine, right?
Jack's absurd claim baffled me. His plan was to disinherit Holly by claiming he alone took care of me and managed my affairs. However, I wasn't dying, and his nonsensical plan was far from reality. It seems Jack's mind was filled with nothing but the thought of getting money the easy way. fearing they might concoct more schemes for my estate. I made a significant decision. I understand your thoughts now. Since that is the case, I now disown you, Jack. My strong declaration turned Jack and Anna pale.
Disown? You're joking, right? How will I repay my debts?
That's right. I bought 3 designer bags and even a new car, thinking we'd get a big sum. We're in trouble now.
Jack and Anna had recklessly spent, assuming they'd receive my insurance and inheritance, and had even gambled their money away, accumulating debts.
Even if we lost big, we thought we could cover it with the inheritance. Mom, lend us some money, at least $10,000 for now.
Dismissing Jack's ludicrous request, I decided to return to my beloved home, packing only essentials. Back home, I opted for in-home care services that provide bath and household support, allowing me to have some peace despite the cost. Despite my declaration of having disowned him, Jack and Anna persistently begged for money, choosing times when care services were absent to make loud, threatening visits. Their appalling behavior led to frequent police reports. Eventually, they barged in, attempting to steal my bank book, leading to their arrest for attempted burglary. The fear of their return lingered, preventing a truly peaceful life. One day, Holly and Ryan urgently visited, cautiously checking the surroundings and locks. Holly, why are you looking around so anxiously?
2 days ago, a friend saw Jack being chased by some menacing individuals near the station.
Concerned for my safety, Holly rushed over, proposing to live together again.
Ryan agrees too. We can't leave you alone anymore. Please, come with us, Mom.
Holly, despite my condition, please take care of me, I said to her sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Holly's joyful tears warmed everyone present. After selling my old house, I moved to Holly and Ryan's accessible new home, surprised by the barrier-free design. My room is placed next to the entrance, and it is equipped with a special bed, private bathroom, and handrails everywhere.
Even if you end up using a wheelchair, it'll be easy to move around. The private bathroom allows you to use it comfortably. All these were Ryan's ideas.
Holly smiled happily, and Ryan grinned sheepishly beside her. Once again, I felt truly fortunate to be living with this couple. Currently, Holly is expecting a new addition to their family, as she plans to become a full-time homemaker after giving birth. She's also studying to be more prepared for caregiving if needed. While I can still move, I want to do my best for my family. So I'm actively helping with Holly's household chores. Life has been tough since my husband passed away, but I finally found a place of peace. I'm committed to my rehabilitation through household tasks, hoping this happiness lasts. I am determined to maintain my current condition as long as possible, especially for the grandchild, who will be arriving soon.
My name is Rachel Keller. I've been married for 10 years. My husband is a hard worker and very family-oriented. He's quite meticulous, and sometimes we go out as a family on his days off, just a regular family, really. He also treats my parents with great respect, and I think he's just the perfect husband. However, I recently caught him coming out of a hotel with his mistress. I couldn't believe my eyes, but it was unmistakably my husband, Stephen. The mistress looked younger than me, radiant. Oh, so he has someone he likes. That was my first thought. I'm pretty straightforward, often told by my parents that I'm super positive, clear and open. Perhaps because of this, my motto has always been to accept what comes and not chase what goes. When we got married, I had decided that if Stephen ever fell in love with someone else, I would gracefully step aside. And with all the men I've dated before, whenever they said they found someone else, I've always let go completely and moved on. So, it should be the same this time. But the fact is, seeing them arm in arm, looking so close, it really hurts. But there he is, looking so happy. Seeing my husband's face like that, I felt a storm raging inside me. So I approached them. Stephen, not expecting to run into his wife in front of the hotel, couldn't hide his shock.
Rachel.
Huh? Who's this?
The woman looked back and forth between me and Stephen, clearly puzzled. No wonder she was confused. Stephen.
Rachel, this is, well.
I was in the way of your happiness, wasn't I? Those were the words that came out of my mouth.
No, it's not like that. There's a reason for this.
It's okay. I'm sorry. With that, I turned on my heel. Stephen was shouting, "No, it's not what it looks like," but the woman clung to his arm, preventing him from chasing after me. I started running away from Stephen. After running for a while, when I was sure he wasn't following, I stopped to catch my breath. Then, I reflected on what had just happened. No matter how many times I think about it, him coming out of that hotel means it's an affair. Or maybe it's serious. If that's the case, then he has chosen someone else over me. I began to walk slowly, pondering how things got to this point. No matter how straightforward I am, the betrayal still hurts. Although I used to decide on breakups easily, now that we are married, separating is painful. But he has chosen someone else, so I guess it's inevitable. I tried to convince myself, but my vision blurred all the same. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. Our marriage was blissful. Even when I was busy with work, Stephen never complained and willingly did the nursery drop-offs and pickups. When our child had a fever, he'd take time off work to care for her. He always accepted my suggestions to go out as a family on weekends with a smile. Despite some men boasting about being the breadwinner, he never did that. Instead, he appreciated that our lifestyle was possible because we both worked. That's why I was able to focus on my career, start my own company, and expand the business. Out of gratitude to him, I bought a new house for my in-laws and gave him more than enough pocket money. No matter how tired I was, I tried to handle housework, childcare, and work to prevent him from getting stressed. I made time to visit his parents' house and show them their grandchild. It was all for my husband, who always cared for me, and for our family. I believed our life together would last forever. I strive to be a good wife for that very reason. But perhaps Stephen had some complaints. I've heard that a husband's affair is sometimes blamed on the wife. That it's the wife's fault, leading the husband to be captivated by another woman. In the end, it's all my fault. Perhaps he had grievances but just never expressed them. Maybe I was too complacent, thinking everything was fine and depending too much on him. If that's the case, then maybe separating is really for the best, for his sake. If I love him, I should cleanly break it off and wish for his happiness. I know this without anyone telling me. Yet, for some reason, the storm in my heart won't subside. Why? No matter how many times I ask myself, I can't find an answer. I keep walking, and seeing other couples makes the pain surge anew. I had that phase with him once, so where did it go wrong? Why did it come to this? I always thought family was the most important thing, but it seems he wanted to prioritize being a man over family. This is a betrayal. A betrayal of the marriage vow. The anger of being betrayed. Yet, what I feel is not anger but pain and sorrow. And regret for not being able to make my husband happy. How could this happen? Then, a new storm hit. What about our daughter? It's not just me who's been betrayed. What will happen to her? She adores her dad and thinks living with him is her happiness. Yet, he betrayed her too. Should I forgive him? Should I? Thinking of our child only deepens the agony. Lost, I find myself reflecting on our married life. Those happy 10 years. They weigh heavily on me. If only I could pretend I never saw it. If only I could act as if nothing happened. Would everything then stay the same? But can I truly call that happiness? As night fell, I walked towards the home where my daughter was waiting. When I saw the lights of our house, I stopped. And there, I made a decision for the sake of my daughter waiting for me. Stephen came home late at night. What had he been doing? Spending a pleasant time with his mistress, perhaps? While waiting restlessly for him, I cooked dinner as usual, fed our daughter, faked a smile to conceal my feelings, and put her to bed at 9 p.m. with a goodnight kiss. Was there ever a night as painful as this? No, even on nights when I was too tired to move, none were as painful as this. The storm inside calmed, leaving a gaping void in its place. A hole so deep and dark. As my daughter fell asleep, I placed the divorce papers on the table and waited for Stephen's return. When I saw the lights of the house, I turned back, thinking of the divorce papers I had picked up from the office. To think that in the 10th year, I'd be looking at such a document. I picked up the pen several times but couldn't write, sighing deeply. I had just finished writing my name. And then Stephen returned. I greeted him with a smile, welcome home.
Yeah, I'm back. Rachel, about what happened today?
Stephen must have been pondering how to start this conversation. He spoke as if making a resolution. Removing his coat, placing his bag down, his actions as usual.
It's not what you think.
Please stop. I don't need excuses. Because it's my fault, isn't it? I was desperately trying to smile.
Why? Why is it your fault, Rachel?
Because when a husband cheats, it's the wife's fault, right? Your heart wandered because I didn't understand you, Stephen. It's all my fault.
That's not true. And about her.
I'm sorry. When I hear excuses, I just get angry. I don't want to yell or fight. So, let's end this cleanly.
End it? Why?
Because you have someone you love, don't you? Why should I stay with you when you have someone else? That won't make you happy.
I don't want to leave you, Rachel. And there's our daughter Mary too. Don't talk about separating.
What are you saying? You chose her over me and Mary, didn't you? Yet you won't leave either of us. Don't you feel sorry for her? That's just sad for her.
No, it's different. It's not that serious with her.
Not serious? That's a lie. I don't know what kind of relationship you want, but I think she's serious. I've had you all to myself for 10 years. So now, I'll step aside for her. I think that's best for both of us. I want you to be happy.
I am happy enough.
Please, sign this. Your happiness is my happiness.
No, I'm sorry. Please, I don't want to break up this family.
It's not about breaking, Stephen. You're just starting a new life. I don't think of it as breaking. I love you so much that I just want you to be happy. Please sign this. I don't want to stand in your way any longer.
Rachel.
No matter how much Stephen said he didn't want a divorce or tried to talk about starting over, I had no intention of stopping the divorce. Finally, Stephen gave in and signed the papers.
I'm sorry, Rachel. It's all because I harbored feelings for another woman that I made you write this divorce paper.
It's okay, don't worry about it. Remember what I said when we got married? If you ever fell in love with someone else, we would part ways cleanly.
I never thought you could actually do it.
I never thought it would be this painful to decide to leave you. But if staying with me means you miss out on happiness, then it's better we part ways.
Why can you sacrifice yourself so much? You should be scolding me, throwing your anger at me. It would be easier for me.
You might find it easier, but I won't do something just to make you feel better. I don't want to end in a fight. If you and she can be happy, then that's my happiness. So I won't throw my emotions at you. I'm not that kind. I don't think of forgiving you for betraying our daughter. Being treated kindly can be painful, right?
You care about me that much. Rachel, you're like a goddess.
A goddess, huh? I wonder what happens when you betray a goddess. Divine retribution can be quite painful, you know. But then again, it's not a god but me, a human, who'll deliver it. Before we divorce, there's something I want to know.
What is it?
Why did you have feelings for another woman? What was wrong with me?
No, Rachel, there was nothing wrong with you. You were a perfect wife. It was just my weakness.
So, I wasn't at fault?
Yeah, maybe too perfect, if anything.
Too perfect?
Yeah, you were too perfect, and it made me lose confidence. Maybe that's why my feelings shifted towards something imperfect.
What? That's no excuse at all. So, can you tell me about her? Her name, age, what does she do?
Her name is Sarah Parker. She's 35. Works at a cafe. I used to frequent that cafe, and that's where we became acquainted. I thought she was cute and struck up a conversation. We started going out for meals, watching movies, and gradually, my feelings shifted.
She must be very cute then.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you. You can have this luxury condo.
What?
I'll be taking custody of our daughter. That's enough for me. It's not easy to find a place like this, and you'd want to live in a nice home as newlyweds, right?
What will you do, Rachel?
I'll look for another apartment. But can you wait a week? I need that time to find a new place.
No, you should stay here, Rachel.
It's too big here. And living in this room, filled with our memories, would be too painful for me.
I see. All right, thank you. She'll probably be happy about it.
No, don't mention it. I'll fully support your happiness. I said this with a broad smile on my face. The next day, I visited my in-laws' house to apologize to George and Diana, who had always treated me like their own daughter and loved my daughter, for not being able to keep Stephen's heart. George, Diana, I'm really sorry. I couldn't hold on to Stephen's heart, it's all my fault.
He had an affair, really?
Yes, so I got him to sign the divorce papers. I'll be leaving the current apartment within a week. Then, he can remarry her with no holds barred.
How could this happen? Why divorce?
It's my fault. So, I thought stepping aside is the best way for Stephen to be happy.
It's not your fault, Rachel. He's the one who did wrong. Well, if you can't forgive that, then divorce is inevitable, I guess.
I'm truly sorry for being such an imperfect wife and causing George and Diana distress. I spoke earnestly, blaming myself for my husband's infidelity and apologizing sincerely. George and Diana understood and said it's Stephen who should be apologizing.
Poor Mary, if that's the case, it can't be helped.
Yes. I'll have custody of our daughter. I'm grateful to him for leaving her with me.
A mother's care is best, better than being raised by a stepmother.
Thank you. I expressed my gratefulness sincerely and left my in-laws' house, never to return. Leaving there, I went straight to the district court to submit the divorce papers. Then I began looking for a new apartment, moving out of the familiar condo within a week. After moving, I decided to meet with the mistress. She must have heard about the divorce from Stephen. She appeared before me, looking triumphant. You're Sarah Parker, right?
Yes, that's right.
I submitted the divorce papers about a week ago. I believe they have been accepted, so you can remarry now.
Huh?
You're planning to remarry, right?
Yes, I suppose. So, why did you want to meet me?
Just to inform you about the divorce. I have to make sure you know you can remarry since he might not have told you.
Huh, I knew about the divorce, but I didn't think you'd actually do that. Are you really that kind?
Well, who knows? But I've decided to support you too.
Why would you support us? I took your husband, you know?
True, you could say you took him, but he chose you. So, I've decided to support you too in finding happiness. If you don't become happy, then my stepping aside would be meaningless.
Huh, you really are strange.
She called me foolish. But Fu is truly the foolish one. I don't think affairs are as sweet as she believes. Do you know about my husband's job?
Job?
Yes, what does he do?
I don't know the details, but I know he was headhunted by a major company and became a department head.
Yes, that's right. He's a department head with a high salary.
Letting go of a man with such a high salary, are you okay with that?
I've lived with him for 10 years. Now it's your turn to be happy with him. I'm fine with it.
Such a kind person.
But I will take alimony and child support.
That's fine. He's a department head, after all. I don't know how much the alimony is, but it's probably nothing for him. Child support isn't much monthly either. Maybe he could pay the lump sum amount until your child reaches adulthood. That way, we can sever ties.
That would be helpful, but it should be until she graduates college, not just until she's an adult.
That's no problem at all. Don't you think he has enough money for that? If it means cutting ties with you, I'd prefer he pays it all at once.
Then please suggest that to him.
I will. He listens to everything I say.
Good. We've moved out, so you two should live in that luxury condo. Perfect for newlyweds, right?
He said he'd take the condo, so I guess that's where we'll live.
Stephen is a kind man who values family, so I believe you'll be happy.
I suppose so.
She looked at me triumphantly again. But if he were truly kind, this situation wouldn't have occurred. A genuinely family-oriented person wouldn't stray for such trivial reasons. She must think she'll be fine. It's not that simple. I wanted to flash a triumphant smile too, but it wasn't the time for that yet, so I just kept a small smile. But my praising Stephen seemed odd to her, prompting a question.
I get that you're a nice person, but how can you forgive being cheated on?
It's my fault for not keeping his interest on me. He said he hated my perfection. Must have felt suffocated, I guess. Not so perfect if I couldn't see that, huh?
You blame yourself, huh? But he's a catch, a department head. Aren't you worried about letting that go?
If you're happy, that's all that matters to me. I value happiness over money. Besides, he gave me custody. That's enough for me.
You really are strange, almost foolish.
Are you planning a wedding?
Of course.
Well, I know someone who owns a big wedding venue. Booking there usually takes months. Would you like me to put in a word? Might get you a discount.
Really? That would be great.
Yes, they have gorgeous wedding dresses too. You want a lavish wedding, right?
Sure, doesn't have to be cheap though. He's a department head after all. But I'd like to get married soon.
Got it. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll arrange everything.
Any time is good. We're ready to get married now.
That sounds exciting.
You're such a good person.
Am I? I hope it's the best wedding ever. That night, I heard from Stephen. He was excited, saying Sarah told him about the wedding venue arrangement.
You're handling the venue too.
Yes, my friend owns it. They said they'd make it the best wedding possible, even though it's usually a 6-month wait.
It's that busy.
Yes, it's a famous place. But they promised to make room for you.
Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. It's me who's at fault here.
It's fine. I'd do anything for your happiness.
I'll pay the alimony and child support in full. It's manageable.
Good to hear, that eases my mind.
Sarah is happy, but she hates that we're still connected. So, paying in full seems best.
I'm glad. That will make life easier for me.
I might pay a bit more for the alimony.
Really? Are you sure?
Yes, of course.
Just don't regret it later.
Huh?
Don't worry, seeing you two happy makes me happy too. 2 weeks later, a grand wedding was held, and Sarah was thrilled with her exquisite wedding dress. Sitting in the spotlight, Sarah and Stephen looked blissfully happy, like the happiest people in the world. I sat in the audience, smirking at the couple. After the wedding, as I saw them off to their honeymoon, I thought, now, the counterattack begins. They think they can be happy? You're being naive. Sure enough, when Stephen returned from the honeymoon and went to work, he found a disciplinary notice on his desk. Shocked by the sudden action, he rushed to the CEO's office. But the CEO said he didn't know the reasons as it was the chairman's decision. Stephen insisted, but couldn't change the outcome. Dejected, he gathered his belongings and left the company. When he got home, he found a bill from the wedding venue. Opening it, he called me, his voice almost a scream. His voice sounded like a scream, almost. Oh, Stephen, what's up?
I've been fired. Out of nowhere.
That's tough.
I don't understand why I was let go.
Really? No idea why.
None at all. I haven't made any big mistakes, and now this disciplinary action. The chairman made the decision, and I can even meet him to find out why. The CEO just tells me to leave.
Well, that's unfortunate, isn't it?
It's not just unfortunate.
But, come on, saying that.
And now, there's this huge bill from the wedding venue you introduced.
That makes sense. It was a grand wedding. Sarah's wedding dress alone must have cost around $40,000. I thought it was quite a pricey one you picked.
That's why the bill is so enormous. And on top of being fired.
But the venue can't be helped. Being fired and the venue are unrelated.
Can we get the venue price reduced?
That's impossible. They already gave us a friend's discount. Can't ask for more.
But I don't have the money now.
You had the money for such an expensive wedding, right?
That was before I get fired. And now I'm even getting billed for the condo rent.
Well, of course.
Why? Shouldn't it be paid for?
It's a rental, Stephen.
Rental. I thought we bought this condo.
Didn't you know? It's a rental. Since we could rent the luxury apartment for a reasonable price, I passed it on to you. You can't rent the penthouse in a tower for that amount, you know. But I don't need it. It's fine for a family, but it's just me and my daughter.
I can't believe it's a rental.
You thought you owned it?
Yes, exactly.
That's unfortunate. But now there's nothing you can do about it. If it bothers you, just move out.
She's complaining. Why do we have to move out of the luxury condo when we just got it? I told her we have no money, but she doesn't care. Plus, we paid for the honeymoon with credit cards, and the bill is coming in 2 months. There's no way we can pay it.
Well, that's your problem, not mine. You were the ones who spent the money.
But this means misery, not happiness. Can you lend us some? Give back the alimony and child support I paid in full. That way, we can get by for now.
No way, I'll never see that money again if I lend it to you.
Oh man. Why was I fired?
Because you had an affair.
What? How do you know the reason? If it's true, what a terrible chairman. Isn't firing someone over an affair too much?
Well, the company doesn't tolerate such behavior.
Why do you know all this?
Simple, because I'm the chairman.
What? No way. I knew you started a business, but chairman. How come it's my company? Huh?
Realized it? When you were thinking of quitting, why do you think a completely different company offered you a position as a head, huh?
I thought it was because of my skills.
Come on, that's not it. I arranged for your headhunting.
What? But you said you were just an office worker.
I started that company. Once it was on track, I wanted to focus on family, so I made my cousin the CEO. In exchange, I became the chairman and told you I was an office worker. That way, your pride was intact, and I could take care of our daughter.
This is insane. I was just dancing in your palm.
Exactly.
But firing me is too harsh.
You're the one who betrayed, remember?
You said you wanted me to be happy.
Yes, I wanted you to be happy. Now the shock of hitting rock bottom will be greater, right?
That's cruel.
Happiness has its downside. But you chose that woman, so you'll be fine, right? Good luck. Stephen kept saying, this can't be real, but I was smirking triumphantly. He kept contacting me to let him return to work, but of course, I refused. After enduring such frustration, why would I offer a helping hand now? There's no way I would do that. Ultimately, unable to find a job and faced with the enormous wedding and honeymoon bills, plus the alimony he owed Sarah, Stephen had to take out large loans. Forced by Sarah's insistence to stay in the luxury condo, they eventually had to move to a rundown apartment. Sarah is constantly ripping into Stephen, saying, "This is such a scam," practically every day. Stephen finally found a job at a small factory as a temporary worker. Ridiculed by colleagues, his pride shattered. Even working himself to exhaustion, his salary is only about 1/10 of what he earned when he was a department head. When he asked Sarah to work too, she retorted, "Don't joke. This isn't what I signed up for." Eventually, overworked to the point of collapse and needing hospitalization, he couldn't afford it. Sarah, disgusted, divorced him after 6 months. Now he lives alone in that shabby apartment. I return to my job. I'm teaming up with the CEO while I serve as the chairman. Though the condo is smaller than before, the view with my daughter is still the best, proving once again that luxury condos are superior.
It's for work, you know.
Even as his daughter protested, her father, Kenny, wouldn't listen.
You really should cancel that trip.
His daughter was desperate, trying to get him to stop.
We had originally planned to hang out this weekend, just the 3 of us. I even turned down an invitation from my friends for this.
Hearing his daughter's plea, Kenny seemed to feel a bit guilty. However, unfortunately, it didn't look like he was going to cancel. Of course, I had adjusted my work schedule to make plans for the weekend, so I couldn't help but give Kenny a stern look. Is this trip really so important that he can't cancel it even at his only daughter's earnest request? During weekends, it's usually golf outings for client entertainment or working overtime for a holiday shift. This weekend was supposed to be our chance to finally go out together, just the 3 of us. Kenny looked at me with eyes that seemed to plead, "Understand me, will you?" No way, I thought, feeling really disillusioned with my husband. I'm Emily Miller, 38 years old. I live with my husband Kenny and our daughter Hannah. We bought a condo near my workplace, and we've been living happily together. Kenny works for a well-known corporation. It seems that he, being of a certain age, is gradually being entrusted with larger projects as a mid-level employee. I work for a company that does business with his corporation. After returning from maternity leave, I'm now holding a decent position. Since we both work, we're financially comfortable, able to travel together or dine out. Our daughter Hannah is also sincere, and I believe she's a good kid even without being a doting parent. Kenny adores her, and unlike what you often hear, she doesn't dislike her father at all. We've lived our lives in gratitude every day. However, it hasn't all been good. Kenny doesn't do any household chores. I can understand if I were on maternity leave and home all day. But nothing changed even after I returned to work. Childcare, cooking, cleaning, laundry, it all falls on my shoulders. Feeling at my limit, I asked Kenny to at least help with half of the childcare or chores. His response was irritating.
I earn enough that you could quit your job if you wanted. If you don't like it, why don't you just quit?
He flatly refused to help. Looking back, I might have been experiencing something like postpartum depression. It became clear that Kenny's kindness was only superficial, not truly caring from the heart. Friends might think he appears kind, because he acts affectionate towards Hannah when colleagues are around, but they don't see the reality that I do. When things get tough, I hire a babysitter or outsource housework without discussing it with him. While watching the neighboring couple with their children, I longed for my husband to have such thoughtfulness. Even complaining about someone's husband not washing dishes properly sounds bitter because of how hard my days are. Hannah has grown well, and I've fully returned to work. As she started elementary school and our life settled into a new routine, Kenny began going out more. On weekends, it's drinking parties, social gatherings, business golf, or barbecues with his colleagues of the department, hardly ever at home. I just want to spend our rare days off together as a family. I want to go on outings as a family.
I want to go out with Daddy.
Hannah has started to plead with me. While I always make sure she has fun shopping or at the movies, she clearly misses having her father with us. Kenny doesn't consider her feelings at all.
I'm going camping with colleagues tomorrow. I'll be staying overnight, so I won't be home.
He quietly told me before bed. Occasionally take us camping too. Hannah wants to go with you. I couldn't keep my patience anymore, feeling sorry for our daughter who's been enduring so much. I'm not good with bugs, so taking me camping is out of the question. At that, my husband's mood quickly soured.
I'm going with colleagues because it's part of my job. We're not just lounging around like you guys. Don't talk nonsense.
He snapped angrily. He has always had a temper, but never before had he said such harsh words without us even arguing. Rather than getting angry, I was too shocked to speak. Hearing his shouting, our daughter, who looked startled, came out of her room.
Daddy, what's wrong? Did I do something bad? Are you upset because you're busy with work? Let's play together on your next day off.
As she said this, she hugged him tightly. Feeling awkward in front of our daughter, my husband muttered an apology and retreated to the bedroom. Left alone in the living room, I was still irritated and couldn't accept it. Indeed, he had been popular since college, known for being the life of the party and liked by everyone, regardless of gender. I had always admired that about him. Thinking about it, it seemed strange to be upset over that. It's no wonder he's relied upon at work just like he used to be. Though I was still not satisfied, I decided not to push further as it seemed problematic to deny my husband's strengths as a wife. After seeing our daughter's sad face, my husband's weekend outings began to decrease. She has built a good relationship with her father. However, even though he goes out less, he doesn't help with the chores. We just manage to go out as a family now and then. Most of the housework and childcare still fall on me. My dream of doing simple chores together like cooking dinner or working together on trendy DIY projects to build a storage shelf doesn't seem likely to come true. But as a teenager, our daughter enjoys outings with the three of us, always pleading with her father about where she wants to go. He seems not entirely averse to it, and they were planning to go to an amusement park next month. I always watched these scenes with a smile. Today, after a long time, I went to the mall just with my daughter. Why just the two of us? Because my husband had left in the morning to hang out with colleagues. Shopping with my daughter was a blast, just like hanging out with a sister, laughing and checking out various stores. With my husband around, I always feel bad about leaving him out, so I can't fully enjoy exploring the mall.
Let's eat something tasty,
she said as we walked through the food area. That's when I saw the profile of my husband, who I had seen off in the morning. As I approached to call out to him, I noticed a young woman beside him. Seeing me frozen in shock, my daughter seemed to realize.
Mom, isn't that?
I felt weak at the knees. Her face looked like she was about to cry. He said he was with a colleague, so maybe that's who it is. Trying to stay calm, I spoke to her.
That can't be right. Even I can see it. It's obvious Dad is cheating. I didn't tell you, but I've suspected it for a while now.
Her words shocked me even more. I thought he was just hanging out with colleagues. Maybe I was just being oblivious. Overwhelmed with disbelief, my daughter added more.
Actually, I've sometimes peeked at Dad's phone. You never suspected, so I pretended not to know, but I've seen messages that look like he was cheating.
I was shocked, staring at my daughter. She knew but had pretended everything was normal for my sake. It wasn't my fault, but I felt an immense guilt toward her.
Look, Mom, now's our chance. We need to catch him in the act and gather some evidence. We can decide what to do after that.
Unable to accept reality, she pulled me along as we followed my husband. He was sitting at a travel agency counter with that woman. To avoid detection, my daughter and I walked past the area, only to find a page from a Florida travel brochure open. They were leaning in close, laughing quietly as if they were planning a romantic getaway. He's never even discussed going on a trip with us, but he seemed happy to be planning one with his affair partner. It was heartbreaking, considering how happy he used to be just going to the local amusement park. I wanted to scream out loud, but in front of my daughter, I couldn't, and my mind went blank. I don't even remember how we got home. They say extreme shock can cause memory loss, and that was exactly what happened.
Lately, Dad's been saying he has sudden business dinners and will come home late, so we should go to bed first. Sorry.
Only upon hearing the voice of my daughter did I snap back to reality. Half a month later,
I'm going on a trip for a week starting tomorrow.
He said it nonchalantly. When I asked where, he said it was a company retreat. In my mind, I muttered, so it's that cheating trip. It's sudden, isn't it? Who are you going with? I almost confronted him, but asked calmly as usual.
It's a work trip, a company outing. I'm going with the usual colleagues. Must have forgotten to tell you.
He continued to feign ignorance. While inwardly calling him a big liar, I was curious to see how he would lie his way out. Hearing us, my daughter came over.
Dad, what are you talking about all of a sudden? Didn't you promise to hang out with me tomorrow?
She must have realized it was the cheating trip. She tried to stop him, talking more earnestly than usual. Her desperate plea didn't work this time. In the past, persuading by my daughter had been foolproof, but it seems impossible today.
It's a work obligation.
My husband maintained his innocence.
You really should cancel that trip.
My daughter pressed him again to cancel it. I listened to their exchange with a pounding heart.
Sorry, let's go when I have a day off from work. These work obligations are important too.
With that one statement, something inside me snapped. Not only my daughter, but I too had hoped to let his affair go if he had taken this advice into consideration. I felt no anger, pain, or sadness anymore. It was more like a sense of emptiness, as if a hole had opened up in my heart. Unaware of our feelings, my husband started packing for his trip tomorrow. He left early the next morning. A week later, he returned late at night. He seemed in high spirits, possibly influenced by a bit of alcohol.
Samuel, my colleague, you see.
He began with what seemed like a fabricated story. After he finished his story, he said he was tired and quickly went off to bed. I sighed as I put away his things, telling myself this was the last time. The next day, still looking tired, he said, "Wonder if everyone at work is doing well," and left for work, unaware of what awaited him. An hour later, around the time I figured he would have reached work, my phone rang.
What did you do at work? When I got there, they told me I was fired.
His voice is pretty furious. He must have been summoned by his boss and given a severe scolding. Plus, he was probably given cold looks from his subordinates as well. It was expected since I had made sure to lay the groundwork while he was away. I don't know what you're talking about. I have to go to work now, so don't bother me, I said sharply and hung up. I figured he must know I was feigning ignorance, but I was tired of being nagged over the phone. A few hours later, my husband stormed into my workplace.
I was told I'm fired because I went on an unauthorized trip with another woman for a week. What's this about?
Rewind to half a month earlier. Still reeling from the shock, my daughter had said to me,
Mom, I'm on your side. I've even taken photos of the affair messages to help if needed.
It seems that his guard was down in front of our daughter, as he was boldly looking at messages exchanged with the affair partner. Upon seeing that, it appears my daughter took a photo of them with her own phone. Of course, she remembered his password and had monitored him while he was away. All without showing any signs, always appearing cheerful around him. I was surprised at how much my daughter had grown without my realizing. I thought she was still a sweet little girl who needed me, but she had been watching out for me in her own way. On the other hand, all trust one had in my husband was gone. I thought he was just being the life of the party at work, but I had been deceived all along. The realization made me feel ridiculous and too humiliated to even cry. From that anger, my daughter and I discussed and started the process of getting a divorce. I decided I had to be strong, not just for my daughter's sake, but I couldn't keep feeling down about it. I could have hired a detective to investigate my husband's actions, but that would cost money, and we already had substantial evidence. So first, I placed a GPS tracker in an inconspicuous part of his bag. It was to check if he was really coming straight home from work as he claimed. Whenever there were dealings with my husband's company, I took the lead, probing about him and his workplace. It quickly became clear that he was stopping at hotels after work or dining at upscale bistros. I also found out that there were no outings or trips with colleagues like he claimed at his company. My suspicion turned into conviction, and instead of feeling down, I focused solely on making him regret his actions. My daughter and I had solid evidence. We decided that if he canceled the affair trip, we would let it go, but if he went, we'd ruin his life. That's why she desperately advised him to cancel, but he left without noticing. Of course, my daughter was monitoring his phone, so we already knew all the hotels he would stay at. I took time off work and gathered solid evidence of the affair trip in the first 3 days. Then, with enough photos to make it indisputable, I returned home first. On the 4th day, I took them to his company and spilled everything to his boss. The boss was shocked, having heard from my husband that my wife's father had passed away, and I need a week off, only to see me, his wife, appear at work as usual. It was embarrassing and disappointing to know he'd stooped to such lies.
Truly, this is not behavior befitting a nearly 40-year-old man. It's irresponsible to both his family and his company.
His boss said indignantly, promising to fire him as soon as he showed up for work. Unaware of this, my husband went to work. Naturally, he faced his boss's wrath and was scoffed at by his subordinates, utterly disgraced. I quietly celebrated that my 2 weeks of gathering evidence had paid off. As I was laughing to myself, the phone rang again.
Don't hang up on me. Because of you, I'm in a mess here. I've been fired.
He raged on the other end. He was completely ignoring his own actions. I didn't ask for you to be fired. Isn't it your fault? After all your cheating and messing around with other women, don't blame me. And don't make up my parents' funeral. That's just bad luck. This isn't a child faking a sick day. Once I started, I couldn't stop. The things I've been holding back all this time suddenly came pouring out like a dam breaking. I unleashed a torrent of verbal abuse just to get it off my chest, and then issued an ultimatum. Go stay with her. I'll move out in a week. We're getting a divorce. I finally said it. I had mostly packed my things during that week.
Okay, calm down. There seems to be some misunderstanding. I'll wait at home. Let's talk.
He realized I wasn't going to be fooled as usual when he felt my resolve. There's really nothing to discuss, but I just want to clear the air. Fine, I'll be home around 7. I needed to get him out of my workplace, so I sent him home. True to my word, I returned home after 7 with a heavy heart. My husband was there, drunk and flushed. I didn't want my daughter to witness a battleground, so she was staying with a friend. While waiting for me, my husband probably could do nothing but distract himself with alcohol. Realizing he couldn't even think to unpack his bags from his trip, I felt certain he would never change.
You really did it, destroying my life.
He yelled as soon as he saw me. That's what he did himself. It sounded like he was acknowledging his own actions. Suddenly, I was slapped hard across the face twice. I was stunned at first, not realizing what happened, but my face stung, confirming I'd been hit. Out of fear, I grabbed a cushion and a book nearby and threw them at him. Stop it, calm down, please. Just when I felt I might continue to be hit, a man burst through the door. Josh, my father-in-law, rushed in and stopped my husband.
You've done something terrible, and now you're hitting your own wife.
And Sarah, my mother-in-law, came in after him, flustered.
This stupid son.
She cried while hitting Kenny.
She's to blame. She orchestrated it all.
You're the one to blame. You caused all of this.
Are you okay?
My parents came into the room late. Seeing my face, my father immediately understood what happened and lunged at my husband.
How dare you do this to our precious daughter? You've hurt her, both emotionally and physically.
He was completely beside himself.
It's okay now. You don't have to endure anymore.
My mother said as she hugged me tightly. Relieved, I started crying. After a few slaps, Josh grabbed Kenny's head and turned him to face me.
I'm terribly sorry for what he's done to your daughter.
He apologized profusely to me and my parents.
I'm really sorry, Emily. I can't apologize enough for what my son has done to you and Hannah. I don't know how I can ever make amends,
Sarah said, crying as she apologized to me. Sarah, it's not your fault. It's Kenny who is to blame. I have to take some responsibility for not noticing, I said, although I didn't really feel that way, but I couldn't help saying it when I saw Sarah's face. Unlike Sarah and Josh, my husband's anger towards me hadn't subsided, and after being beaten by his father, he glared at us like a demon. Josh hit him again and continued to apologize. Seeing that my husband showed no sign of remorse, Josh promised to come back and apologize again, and then he, my husband, and Sarah left. My parents, worried, couldn't stand to leave things as they were and suggested that my daughter and I should come back and stay with them until things calmed down. Everything was finally over, and exhausted both physically and emotionally, I gladly accepted their offer. My daughter and I began living with my parents. Every day my husband calls, saying, "Let's start over. I can't make it without you guys, and I love you guys," over and over. I blocked his calls and emails. Still, he tried to reach me, so I quit social media and even canceled my cell phone to start fresh. Then, he began showing up near my workplace. He's saying things like, "I'll stay at home and you work, then everything will work out. You're the reason I lost my job, so lend me some money. Take responsibility." I trembled with fear, not knowing what he might do next. It was a nuisance at work, and I couldn't bear the thought of being harmed again. There was even a chance it could escalate to him using a knife. Desperate, I went to the police station with a medical report I had saved when I was hit and reported I was being stalked. After explaining everything to the police and showing the medical report, I filed a report for assault. This meant exposing my husband to the police. Though the injuries weren't serious, I was able to obtain a restraining order against him for both me and my daughter. It might just be a small consolation, but it felt like the police were protecting us from my ex-husband. Thanks to involving the police and having both our parents witness what was happening, the divorce went smoothly. As a gesture of apology, I received a larger than usual alimony, and of course, I got custody of our daughter. With that money, I decided to buy a condo near my workplace, and we moved there. I plan to receive child support payments from him every month. The reason it's just a plan is that after being fired, my ex-husband hasn't been successful in finding a new job. He was always more about delegating to others than doing actual work, which, unfortunately, hasn't served him well in securing new employment. He can't seem to hold down a job for long. Josh and Sarah have offered to pay child support instead, but I want to draw a line there. Certainly, for Josh and Sarah, who consider their only granddaughter very dear, I won't stop them from visiting her regularly and providing some gifts. While I can't accept a large sum of money, I believe it's a win-win situation for both Hannah and my in-laws to receive presents like the clothes she desires. I even hope for them to continue this good relationship in the future. Now that everything has settled down and we've moved into the new condo, my daughter and I support each other and live our daily lives together. I've been entrusted with more responsibility at work, and my income has significantly increased. We live comfortably, just the two of us, without needing anyone's help. Living near my parents, we spend a lot of weekends together, and my daughter is dearly loved by both sets of grandparents, growing up healthy and happy. My kind daughter wants to become a nurse and is studying for college entrance exams. Recently, I met a serious-minded man at work, and we've started going to cafes together occasionally. I'm thinking of having him meet my daughter once I'm more certain about him. My daughter is about to celebrate her 20th birthday. As we choose her birthday gift together, I am touched by how much she has grown. Going forward, I look forward to continuing our close and fulfilling life as mother and daughter.
Well, from today, please take care of the 7 of us.
Upon opening the front door, there stood my son, whom I hadn't seen for several months. Behind him, his wife and children were standing with large luggage. I hadn't heard anything about this, and I told him it was rude to suddenly show up at one's parents' house with so many people, but my son was unfazed. He entered, brushing off my words with an indifferent yay, a sight that was nothing short of terrifying. Why did my son come back? Months ago, after I criticized him and his wife for their reckless spending, it was he who called me a greedy old hag and cut off ties with me. My son, much stronger than me, easily pushed open the door and came in.
There's obviously not enough room for 7 people here, you know.
My son stretched out his arms straight and firmly grabbed my shoulders. He said with a pleasant smile, causing me pain,
Once you're done with cleaning and laundry, Mom, you can sleep in the hallway.
My name is Barbara, a 75-year-old woman living on a pension, just an ordinary American woman. Before I got married, I was all about my career at the company. Initially, I loved my job, and since there were many women around, there was an understanding for women working overtime. Back then, the societal norm was once a woman gets married, she should stay at home. However, my company said, "You've been doing great work, so if possible, we'd like you to stay. What do you say?" It was fulfilling work, but my husband wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife, so I became one after we got married. I also got really into cooking, putting extra effort into my usual dishes, making them taste professional. I had always admired the idea of spending time and adding that extra touch to cooking. I secretly found joy in having more time for my hobby of sewing by being a stay-at-home wife. We only had one child, Jason, but I cherish the time we spent together as a family of 3. When Jason was young and in elementary school, I loved how clingy he was. As he hit middle school, Jason went through a rebellious phase and sometimes put emotional distance between us, but he was blessed with good friends. He even has friends from middle school he keeps in touch with to this day. In high school, influenced by his friends or maybe thinking about college, Jason focused more on his studies. My husband, despite his old-fashioned views, was supportive in raising our child, making the tough parenting journey enjoyable. I was lucky to have mom friends around during high school and college entrance exams, discussing things like, what approach are you taking with your child? What advice should we give? And how can we support their study focus? I ended up paying for most of the wedding because Jason hadn't saved much. My husband worked hard and provided well for us, ensuring a smooth and comfortable life. My hard-working husband passed away 5 years ago after a battle with illness. Now, I'm living alone, getting by on my pension and the savings my husband left behind. I use my sewing skills to create pieces and sell the finished products on thrift market website, earning a bit of income. With a comfortable financial situation and no struggles in daily life, I've been leading a fulfilling life, volunteering with friends besides my hobby. Outside of volunteering, I enjoy delightful days out, like going to lunch with my friends. My son Jason, now 44 years old, married 17 years ago and has his own family. His wife, Lisa, is 40. I remember her from their school days as a quiet girl. But that image has long been replaced as I got to know her better. They have 3 children, with the eldest grandchild now 14, followed by a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. My relationship with my son and daughter-in-law is good, especially when the grandchildren were younger, as they weren't very demanding. I made sure not to do to her what I disliked being done to me as a mother-in-law, avoiding unexpected visits and giving money on special occasions so they could buy what they liked. I thought we were maintaining a healthy distance, but recently things have changed. My daughter-in-law now often asks for gifts for the grandchildren or to eat out at expensive restaurants every week. When we go out to eat, she and my son never even pretend to reach for their wallets, always choosing pricey places. But dining out is still better in a way. I enjoy seeing my grandchildren happily eating and saying how delicious everything is. Given the evolving situation, Lisa has started clamoring for accessories that clearly aren't in line with what a middle schooler would typically wear. I've known Lisa since my son was in high school. She was a quiet girl, unremarkable in both good and bad ways. I can't believe I didn't see how brazen she could be, and I just sigh. She wasn't rude to begin with, but became domineering the moment she felt she could say anything to me. Over time, relatives noticed her true nature and gradually distanced themselves. Now, only those with strong character remain in contact with her. Lisa, thinking I'm easy to manipulate, started asking for rings, necklaces, designer wallets, and bags. I've confronted her, asking, "Why do you need such expensive things? Aren't these just for you?" She insisted it was all for the kids. It starts with clothes for the elementary school's enrollment ceremony.
I need this outfit for when I attend parents' days. Only a designer bag will match this dress.
But I couldn't afford to buy designer bags just for that reason. Ignoring her moderately, she eventually stopped pestering me for more. However, she then started aiming for things that were hard to refuse. She would barge in while I was cooking dinner.
Please make some side dishes for me too.
When I refused,
well then, anything you have will do,
she would say, and then help herself to the fridge, taking leftovers or the newly bought pack of meat. Even when I strongly objected, she just laughed it off.
Thank you,
she said, shrugging off my arm and leaving on her own accord. Lately, I am astonished that my daughter-in-law would go to such lengths. It's common to hear about daughters-in-law being troubled by mother-in-law issues, but is it normal for me, the mother-in-law, to be the one distressed? It's audacious how she would suddenly visit and then ask for meals for her entire family. And yet, she never shows up for the Memorial Day or visits my late husband's grave. On the Thanksgiving Day, she would ask for money for the grandchildren, devour the Thanksgiving's feast, and then leave without greeting other relatives. One summer, after being ignored despite many warnings, she said,
"It's a trend now to give money on the Thanksgiving Day and during Christmas season. Give them to all the kids, please."
Without even showing respectfulness to the grave or any gift to me, she still demanded money for her 3 grandchildren, pushing me to my limit. When I finally confronted her about her appalling behavior, Jason blatantly looked at me, sighed, and even clicked his tongue.
We're gracing you with our presence and giving you time with the grandchildren. And this is how you talk. Fine then. We won't contact this crazy old woman ever again.
Who's being crazy? Fine, I won't contact you either. Don't ever come back. Lisa left quickly with the children, not even looking back. Since then, the once frequent calls ceased, and the unexpected visits stopped. Afterward, I became busier with my sewing hobby and volunteering, continuing my days without involving my son. Blessed with supportive friends, I enjoyed lunches out and lived busy, fulfilling days. Not contacting my son brought me peaceful and calm times. With sewing, volunteering, and lunches with friends, those days of leading a stimulating life were indeed happy. During my volunteer work, a handicapped person said, "Barbara, thank you as always. It made me feel appreciated, and I was very happy." Being naturally sociable and blessed with many friends, my phone constantly rang with their calls. Whenever I received an email, the cheerful ping sound would play to make a notification, and I'd think, another invitation email, always finding the content pleasant and smiling to myself. 3 years into the estrangement, my home phone, which I hadn't set to block calls, rang for the first time in ages. It was my son. I quickly figured out how to block incoming calls on my cell phone, but I couldn't figure out how to do it on the home phone, so I left it as it was. I've been peacefully minding my own business without any contact, actually. So what on earth is going on? On the phone, I heard, "Hello, Mom," from Jason's voice, and faintly heard Lisa asking, "Did you get through to Barbara?" It seemed they were both calling together. Jason didn't say he was well or that it had been a long time.
I need money,
he said, laughing without any shame. Appalled, I was about to hang up when I heard Jason sigh.
Actually, I got fired from my job.
What? Reacting might have been a mistake, because Jason, thinking I was listening, rapidly continued.
Actually, I had a bit of a health issue and made some mistakes. Made a pretty big blunder and was told to take responsibility. So, I got fired. No farewell party or anything.
It's been tough, huh? Keep it up, I said, but honestly, I could only think, so what? I could guess the next words from my son, who lost his job and was asking for money. Attempting to end the call quickly, Jason's desperate voice stopped me. He seemed not to expect any loan.
If money's out of the question, let's live together again.
What?
You, as my real mother, can live happily with your cute grandkids, and we save on rent. It's a win-win, right? I'll call again. So please clean the house for us.
Don't joke with me. Living with you guys won't make me happy. You cut off our parent-child relationship, and now you're shamelessly coming back because you're in trouble. You should rely on Lisa, not me. I couldn't stay silent at such selfishness, and raised my voice for the first time in a while. Then, I heard Lisa's voice from afar.
I'm working part-time now, but it's still not enough to support 3 kids, so we need your help. Don't you have any affection for your son and grandkids?
Not at all. Living with you would just mean being treated like a maid, eating through my money. I refuse to live together or give any financial support. Don't contact me again. I slammed the phone down, but it started ringing incessantly. The endless ringing annoyed me, so I picked up the receiver between calls. This would prevent other calls, but those who really need me would call my cell. However, the calls from my son and his wife didn't stop. Leaving the receiver off or putting it back, they seemed to find the exact moment to call. Tired of ignoring them, I reached out to a close friend. On a whim, I called a close entrepreneur friend on my cell. "Hello, I want to know how to block calls on the home phone." 3 months had passed since I regained peace. I was almost done with household chores and was making a drawstring bag when suddenly the doorbell rang. It was unusual for the doorbell to ring without an appointment, so I checked the monitor and saw the faces of my son and his wife. A bad feeling crossed my mind. Having them inside would only cause more trouble. I tried to send them away, saying, "I'm busy right now, can you please leave?"
Don't be like that. We've come all this way. We have something important to discuss. Just hear us out,
he said, showing something behind him. It wasn't just their family. Lisa's parents were also there. 7 people, including my son and his wife, their 3 children, and Lisa's parents, had come unannounced, all carrying large suitcases. I couldn't help but feel reluctant to just turn away my son and daughter-in-law, especially with their parents in tow. If I were to send away guests carrying large luggage right from the doorstep, it would surely cause a scene and attract unwanted attention from the neighbors. Although I really didn't want to let them into my house, I begrudgingly led them to the guest room. After ushering Jason and Lisa along with their parents into the room, I let the 3 grandchildren play upstairs. Their joyful exclamations of "This room is so big" echoed through the house. Right off the bat, my son said to me, without any discussion,
"Mom, let's live together. We've even brought our luggage, see?"
"I can't live with you. Take your luggage and go back, please," I blurted out. A simple rejection like this wouldn't easily deter my son. Then he spoke condescendingly.
"Mom, we're trying to be filial by living together. We want to give you, who doesn't have much time left, the joy of caring for your grandchildren. Isn't that filial of me?"
I sighed in exasperation and said, "Look, as you know, I'm 75 years old. It's impossible for me to take care of the grandchildren at this age." I was disillusioned that the form refusal I had expressed over the phone seemed to have been ignored. The thought of being indebted to a son who only thinks of himself was frankly more trouble than it was worth.
Hey, Barbara, Jason is right. Living together will make things easier for you. Seeing your grandchildren every day would make you happy, right?
The thought of how much money I would be drained of, and the amount of effort I would have to put in if I ended up living with my son's family, gave me chills.
Barbara, are you considering your age? Since you don't have much time left, you can enjoy spoiling your cute grandchildren.
I had hardly spoken or even seen Lisa's parents since their marriage greeting. They are staunch Lisa supporters, probably having spoiled their only daughter immensely. And Lisa herself was likely raised in their excessively indulgent love. Then, as if to add insult to injury, Lisa's parents chimed in with their piece.
"Hey, Barbara, let's cooperate with our daughters, considering we both don't have much time left,"
said Lisa's mother, true to their nature. Their brashness must have significantly shaped her character. Though I'm unaware of their lifestyle, they seemed to regard Lisa's word as absolute.
Being the filial son, providing the old mom with the joy of caring for a lively family, that's me, right?
Jason, probably feeling emboldened by the crowd, laughed heartily. I couldn't help but wonder if Jason and Lisa were trying to put me in their debt by bringing up everything they've done for me in the past. It infuriated me how they had squandered my money as if forgetting I had covered the grandchildren's expenses, citing the daughter wants it or the son needs it. Lisa's parents seemed to agree with everything she said.
Hey Barbara, our Lisa is a smart girl. Let's follow her lead.
Lisa's mother said with a smile that was too present, making me feel uneasy. That's why I kept my distance from Lisa's parents. Their brazenness in approaching me so boldly, despite not having met since the wedding, was beyond rudeness. It was sheer impudence. I found Lisa's parents to be incredibly audacious.
Mom, we're here for you, and we'll live together. You'll be happy, right? We'll start living in this house from today.
Jason said with a smirk. He continued to dismiss me, saying,
We'll take your room so you can sleep in the hallway from tonight on.
With Lisa snickering in agreement.
Barbara, please.
I couldn't stand being manipulated by my son's family and Lisa's parents any longer. I pushed past them and retreated to my room on the second floor. Soon after, I came down with my carry-on, to the astonishment of my son and his wife and Lisa's parents. I'm leaving, so make yourselves at home.
What?
My son gasped.
What about the housework?
And we thought we were finally free from it.
Lisa fretted. Their words confirmed my suspicion that they intended to treat me like a maid. I was speechless at the audacity of Jason, jobless and unable to support his family, and Lisa, whose part-time work wasn't enough. Their entitlement, along with Lisa's parents tagging along, was too much to handle. The house is too much for me to manage alone. It's already been sold. You can live here if you want, but you'll need to buy it back. I informed them. My son and his wife seemed unable to grasp what I was saying. I've been planning to move out, and I started preparing 3 months ago.
This living room isn't empty, is it?
Well, the stuff here was supposed to be disposed of last. Most of the things in this house were unnecessary for the new place. Naturally, we threw away what we didn't need and took what was necessary to the new home. If you all want to live here, you'd have to buy back the house. Well, it's been well maintained and close to the station, so I don't think it'll be cheap. The living room had only a desk and simple decor, so it seemed their son didn't notice at all. The decor in this living room was supposed to be taken out by the movers after I had finished unpacking everything. That's why the living room alone had items for entertaining guests.
Mom, I'm your son, aren't I? And the kids, they're your adorable grandkids, right?
The son and his wife pleaded with me even more. I couldn't help but snort with laughter. My dear sons were gone 3 years ago. Why are you telling me this now? You should just go back to your old home.
We've already terminated our apartment lease. Without jobs, we can't pay the rent. Living on Lisa's income is tough. We have no choice but to rely on you. Mom,
Even with such pleas, I'm not obligated to support my son's family or Lisa's parents. What are you talking about? You just need to find a job, and if Lisa continues her part-time work, you should be able to manage. Don't make excuses for being unemployed. Just get a job. The main provider should be you, Jason. I pushed my son away. My parenting days are over. I have no obligation to support Jason now.
we're asking because we can find jobs right away.
My son retorted angrily. Then you should ask Lisa's parents. They are good supporters for Lisa, and it would be easier for you to live there, Jason.
Even our parents sold their house and moved here. This is the only place we have to return to.
This house isn't mine anymore. If you want it, you'll have to talk to a real estate agent to buy it. Seeing their situation, I realized they truly had nowhere else to go. It seems the son and his wife have no home to return to. But this place is no longer a home for Jason either. All I can say is, I'm flabbergasted. I'm appalled they really thought they could live with me without my consent. It's one thing for my son and his wife, but it's quite another for Lisa's parents to come and live in our house too. That's pushing it too far.
You're a parent too. Shouldn't you naturally take care of your son, daughter-in-law, and grandkids?
Lisa's mother had the nerve to say that, but their audacity is astounding. Just because I'm a parent doesn't mean I have to take care of Lisa's parents too. And if you're a parent, why not look after your daughter and her family? Plus, Jason and I cut ties 3 years ago. I've considered my son as good as gone since then. So, it's too late to ask for my help now. The house is sold, and the next place is just a one-bedroom apartment. There's no room for you folks. I said this with a mix of sarcasm and disdain. No matter how charitable I feel, I'm not broad-hearted enough to support a son and daughter-in-law with whom I've severed ties. Without a home of my own, there's nothing I can do. And for me, living on a pension, there's nothing left I can do for Jason and his family. I've got enough on my plate just dealing with my own retirement. Indeed, this house holds many memories with my husband. Memories of a time when things were better economically, and how hard my husband worked to buy this house. There are also precious memories of living with Jason. Memories that now bring tears of nostalgia. Disowning the son we raised together. Am I being irresponsible as a parent? But Jason is over 40 now, married with 3 kids of his own. If there is still a parental responsibility, then surely I must have gone wrong somewhere in raising him. Amidst all this, Jason and his family are blaming each other. It seems nobody ever thought I would sell this house. Indeed, selling this house, now that I'm over 70 and the mortgage is paid off, would be risky. Honestly, I wouldn't have done it if things hadn't gone sour with Jason and his family. It seems like Lisa and her parents have completely forgotten about me, all furious at Jason, their son-in-law.
Jason, you are to blame for lying. All the responsibility is on you.
Lisa's parents were furious.
You said Barbara would never sell the house of memories, Jason. Didn't you check? Now all plans are ruined.
Lisa was also very angry. In fact, I've been close friends with the landlord of the apartment where my son and his wife lived for a long time. Ever since Jason said he wanted to live together 3 months ago, I've been concerned. So, I decided to contact her, who is also a landlord and a friend. From her, I heard that my son had been discussing giving up the apartment for 4 months. I was stunned by my children's actions, but I was glad to know about their plans in advance. Moreover, my friend, the landlord, told me that Jason had said he wanted to live with me, to leave some of the kids' care to me, hoping to show filial piety while I was still healthy. Knowing this, I started planning various ways to avoid living with my children. With my energy at 75, there's no way I could take care of endlessly energetic grandkids. And it was clear that if my son and his wife came, they would impose household chores on me. Moreover, I feared that living together would not only burden me with caregiving, but also drain all my finances. I spent about a week pondering what kind of environment would be comfortable for me. I wondered if I, at 75, could live happily considering my physical capabilities. Living alone in this house is not possible. It's too big to manage on my own. Even now, it's a struggle to maintain it. After much thought, I decided to sell this place and move into a senior living community. Senior housing isn't as spacious as a single-family home, so I moved out only what was necessary. I had to dispose of the things that wouldn't fit in the new apartment, but with my wide circle of friends, it was easy. I sold items and furniture that wouldn't fit in the new apartment, along with excessive clothes and antiques. Many books left by my late husband were also taken by a used bookstall. Items I hadn't used in years, and those that could be used at a charity sale at my volunteer place, were all donated. I went to the local government office, got the paperwork for moving, and found out what was necessary. Most of the moving procedures and preparations were completed 4 days ago. After settling the remaining utilities like electricity, gas, and water, I was in the home filled with memories. As I was enjoying my last moments in the house with my favorite sewing, Jason showed up just as I was about to leave. While playing upstairs, my grandkids must have overheard our conversation and peeked their faces out. Prompted by a look from his parents, my 14-year-old grandchild said,
"Abandoning your own son and us, Grandma, you're heartless. A poor, lonely grandma should live with us. And you should leave all your wealth to my dad and mom."
Hearing this, the 10-year-old and 7-year-old grandchildren echoed, "Right, right," reflecting the upbringing of Jason and Lisa. Their statements, heavily influenced by Jason and Lisa, made me wonder where I went wrong with my son's upbringing. However, Jason and Lisa have made their choices. And while I foresee hardships for my grandkids, it's out of my hands and not my concern anymore. I conveyed this to my grandchildren in an admonishing way. You should ask your mom's parents instead. There's no need for it to be me.
Lisa's parents don't have savings and are barely getting by on their pensions, so that's not feasible. Besides, having us around would make life more enjoyable for you, Mom.
I was so exasperated, all I could do was sigh. Jason is an adult. Find a job while Lisa is working part-time. If Lisa is working, you can at least rent an apartment in her name. The landlord of Jason's previous apartment has left it vacant for now, not wanting to live with me. If a mortgage is feasible with Lisa's part-time income and unemployed Jason, then go ahead and buy the house back. I left the house and had already contacted a real estate agent. I'm getting on in years and just want to live a life that fits my means. Later on, it seemed my son and his family tried to buy back the house I sold. Jason apparently went to the real estate agency, aiming to repurchase the house full of memories for him. He mentioned his former home address and said, "I want to buy this property. It's a big purchase, so he needs a mortgage qualification process." It seems the application didn't pass, naturally, just on Lisa's part-time income. With an unemployed son, they couldn't even discuss a mortgage. The well-located and well-maintained house was far too expensive for Jason's budget, and they couldn't afford to buy it with a loan. Indeed, for an unemployed son and a part-time working daughter-in-law, the house was probably too expensive. Jason's family, including Lisa's parents, ended up living in the apartment they had before, squeezing in 7 people. The landlord was surprised that in addition to Jason's family and children, Lisa's parents were living there too.
It's good as a rental income, but please, no trouble. Neighborhood disputes are the last thing I want.
My friend who is a landlord mentioned. Even though they are living there thanks to the landlord's kindness, the apartment is cramped for 7 people, especially with small children, which seems to be causing a lot of stress. Living in a cramped room with Lisa's parents is just making things more stressful and frustrating for them, I've heard. An acquaintance living near Jason's apartment told me Jason and Lisa are looking increasingly worn out. Jason has found a full-time job, but with no qualifications. It's not paying much, I've heard. Thanks to the money from selling the house, my husband's savings, and my monthly pension, I can afford a decent senior apartment. I'm enjoying my days with hobbies like sewing, volunteering, and dining with friends. My environment hasn't changed much, and I feel happy living peacefully. Since moving to the senior apartment, I've joined a dance club and am having more fun than before. Being part of the dance club has increased my circle of friends, and I'm enjoying every day. I've even made a close male friend, which has added excitement to my life, making each day feel fresh. I'm not considering marriage now, but I'm happy to be helpful to someone. I'm feeling fortunate to spend quality time with good people. I hope to continue living healthily and happily like this.
My daughter's getting married. Come to the wedding.
After enduring harassment for 10 years from Jason and Emily, I moved out to live alone in my new place, leaving them behind. 5 years later, I got a call from Jason. As I listened in shock and confusion, someone revealed a shocking truth to me. Hearing that, I was angry and decided to take revenge on them. I'll never forgive them. I'll show them what I'm made of. I devised a plan and immediately set it in motion. My name is Lisa Smith, 55 years old. I married my husband, Jason Brown, through a matchmaking service. It has been 10 years since we became a couple. These 10 years have been like hell for me. Jason and I each had a child from previous relationships. He had a daughter, and I had a son. I was 45 when I was going to the matchmaking service, working as an office worker in a factory. Jason was 35 and a corporate employee at the time. His daughter, Emily, was 15 and in her last year of middle school when we remarried. My son, Thomas, was 25 then, working as a professional. Thomas is kind-hearted and has been exceptionally caring and supportive of me since his father's death. He landed a job at a major brokerage firm, an hour's drive from home. I thought the daily commute would be tough, so I suggested he live on his own. But Thomas steadfastly refused.
What would you do if I left, Mom? If something happens, there's no one around to help you.
Since losing his father, Thomas had become overly anxious about me. Probably, the loss of his father led to a strong sense of insecurity in him. I couldn't bear to keep him tied down at home because of me. If I need to move forward, I decided to start dating again. That's how I met Jason. We both had children from previous relationships and shared similar struggles, which brought us together. I thought we could support each other through life, but reality wasn't so sweet. The first 6 months of marriage with Jason went well. Emily was friendly and made an effort to build a relationship with me. Seeing us, Thomas must have felt relieved and started considering living on his own as Emily entered high school.
I was worried about leaving you alone, Mom, but since they both are good people, I think it's time for me to be independent. I can stay with Mom forever, and I have a girlfriend now. I want to cherish the time with her.
Seeing Thomas's bashful smile, I was surprised and happy. I think he had been holding back in romance, caring for me. But if marrying Jason was the push Thomas needed, nothing could make me happier. Thomas has looked after me, sacrificing his life. I want him to be happy. I don't want him to feel inferior because of me. With all my heart, I supported Thomas's independence. However, Jason opposed this.
What? Thomas is starting to live alone? That's out of the question. Who do you think will cover the high rent, heating costs, and living expenses now?
I couldn't believe these words, expecting Jason to agree. Jason was counting on Thomas's money. Thomas had been contributing to household expenses since we lived together.
I'm working and of age to live on my own. Since I'm still living at my parents' house, it's only natural that I contribute to the household expenses.
He has helped with rent, heating, and living expenses. But we, as a couple, should cover those ourselves. I never thought it was Thomas's duty to contribute financially. So Jason's view shocked me. He treated Thomas like a cash cow.
You earn little with your part-time job. If Thomas leaves, my burden increases. Give me a break. I don't earn much either. Can't you keep Thomas here? I can't take care of you and Emily alone.
For the first time, I felt irritated with Jason, who complained tiredly, loosening his tie after work. When I remarried Jason, I quit my factory job. I left my full-time job because Jason's house was far from my workplace. I didn't want Emily, who was preparing for exams, to be burdened with housework, so I took on the main role in managing our home. Consequently, I resigned to celebrate our marriage and took a part-time job at a nearby creative cuisine restaurant. I believed that together we could support Emily's education and manage our household. However, as Jason's share of responsibilities seemed to increase, he frequently complained and was unwilling to accept Thomas's decision to live independently. Unable to tolerate his grumbling any longer, I sharply countered. So, if I increase my working hours and our income, you wouldn't have anything to complain about, right? The idea of keeping Thomas at home was not in my mind at all. It was no joke to make him take care of his parents, who were still young and able to work. Even if I were unable to work, I had no intention of burdening my son. We should take care of ourselves. If it's about money, I will earn it, I resolved, glaring at Jason as he mockingly snorted.
You can increase your hours if you like, but you better manage the household too. I'm working full-time and Emily has school. Don't expect us to take up the slack. If you can handle both work and home perfectly and earn what Thomas has been contributing, then I won't mind him moving out. But if you fail even once, I'll bring Thomas back. No questions asked.
I nodded without yielding at Thomas' almost threatening words. If I could handle it, Thomas wouldn't have to bear the burden. I'll do my best. Provoked by Jason, I was not about to stay silent. My rebellious spirit took over, and I accepted his challenge. After Thomas moved out, both physically and mentally exhausting days followed. The workload at home increased significantly as I had to prepare lunches and do laundry for Emily's school activities, in addition to the expenses previously covered by Thomas. Despite her aspirations to become a fashion designer, Emily unexpectedly joined the volleyball team. The food Emily eats quickly increases, and the things I do more than double what we used to do, and the burden continues to increase.
Why does this fabric softener smell different? I told you which one to use for my clothes and which for my uniform.
Emily became increasingly particular since entering high school. Becoming a regular member of the volleyball team in her freshman year, her disciplined life led to a deferred demeanor, and venting her frustrations on me became routine. I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time.
You're really useless. I think my previous mom was better.
She would often bring up the name of Jason's ex-wife, who left him for cheating, and she had plenty to say about the lunch too. If she even suspected the use of frozen food, she'd scream at the top of her lungs, and there were times when she'd push it back untouched. Fed up with her unreasonable behavior, I confided in Jason about it. But Jason, with a smirk as if he had been waiting for this, brought up Thomas as if to threaten me.
You haven't forgotten, have you? If you can't handle the household properly, remember our deal to bring Thomas back? First of all, Emily is a teenage girl. It's natural for her to have strong preferences, right? Imagine taking a lunch full of frozen food and being ridiculed by her friends. What if she refuses to go to school because of that? Are you ready to take responsibility? Even though she's putting effort into her club activities and finally made it to the regular player, if your actions push Emily into refusing to go to school, I won't stand for it.
But I have my job too, and couldn't you at least cooperate a little?
No way. If neglecting the household because of work, then bring Thomas back and find a way to manage the finances again. If you reduce your workload, then there's no problem, right? You made that promise, so stick to your word. If you can't do it, then sort things out for Thomas to come back. That's it.
Whenever something happened, I'd be threatened with Thomas, and these days of intimidation continued. Because of that, I couldn't even think of any other way to endure this life in an environment where I couldn't talk to anyone. I've had enough. I wish I could just disappear from this world. It was just as I started to think such thoughts. Mentally and physically exhausted, I finally collapsed at work. I was exhausted and allowed to lie in the office's break room.
I'm glad Lisa is working hard, but you look clearly too pale. Everyone else is worried too. Did something happen at home? If work is too much, just tell me. I don't want to force you to work. We can adjust your working hours as much as you need.
It's pathetic, even though I chose this path. I cried tears of self-pity, and Tyler, the manager, approached me with concern, causing me to burst into tears. As I cried, other part-time workers and employees who heard the commotion also came to check on me out of concern. However, I couldn't talk to anyone about what was happening at home. I was afraid of being criticized by others. Because I remarried, Thomas could leave home with peace of mind. But if I were to talk about the ordeal I'm going through, I'm sure divorce would be hinted at. Some might even advise me to ask Thomas to come back. But if I did that, I might burden Thomas unnecessarily and deprive him of his freedom, which he left home for, just to avoid worry. I don't want to do that. I don't want to burden him further with my issues. That's why I couldn't tell anyone about Jason and them, even though I wanted to. I was trapped in this dilemma, and in the end, I continued living like this for 10 years. Even after graduating high school, Emily didn't leave home. Instead, she pursued her dream of becoming a fashion designer by attending a fashion school for 2 years, and then got a job at an apparel company. During this time, the harassment towards me persisted, and now it even extended to criticizing my clothes, hairstyle, and makeup.
Mom, you seriously have no sense of style. Remember what you wore to come to my high school? It was a disaster. I got teased by my friends so much afterwards. You have a daughter aiming to become a fashion designer. So if you have any sense of being my mom, couldn't you at least try to dress a bit better? That's why Dad doesn't see you as a woman anymore.
With remarks like these, I endured days of being mocked by Emily. But I couldn't say anything back. I just had to bear it. Since Thomas left, Jason never made time for us as a couple, regardless of whether I contributed financially to the household or managed the chores perfectly. I felt more like being a maid than a family member. As Emily said, for the past 10 years, Jason never treated me as a woman even once. I've had enough. I can't stand this life anymore. I want to run away right now. At my breaking point, I pleaded with Jason and Emily to let us live separately.
Separate? Are you kidding me? Who's going to take care of the house then?
Exactly. I'm busy with work, and Dad is always working overtime. We don't have time to do chores. You can just leave this house.
I'm not some kind of maid. Fed up with their selfish arguments, I screamed hysterically. For the past 10 years, I've lived like a slave. I'm sick of it. I have a life too. And Emily, you're already 25, right? How long do you plan on depending on your parents? When will you learn to take care of yourself? The daughter of my colleague at work said she's independent. She's been working for a major company since she was 20, and she takes care of everything at home herself. You're 5 years older than her, yet you still rely on your mom to make your lunch and leave everything from laundry to ironing to me. Aren't you ashamed? When I was 20, I was already taking care of myself and working. As I let out my accumulated frustration, Emily let out a loud voice of dissatisfaction.
Comparing your daughter to someone else's child is despicable. Taking care of your adorable daughter should be a mother's pride, shouldn't it? Yet you make it sound like it's my fault.
That's right, Lisa. Emily is at that age now and she's busy with work. Isn't supporting each other what family is about? Yet it's all about yourself. Aren't you ashamed?
Their rebuttals only fueled my anger. Do they even understand the meaning of what they're saying? I directed a disdainful look towards the two of them, who kept spewing unbelievable words. Ashamed? Then what about you saying such things? Aren't you ashamed that your daughter turned into such a mess and became a worthless woman? And isn't it because you've spoiled her like that she can't do anything? As I counted, which I hadn't done before, Jason seemed to be boiling with rage. Approaching me as if he was about to confront me, his eyes glaring fiercely with bloodshot.
What the heck? What kind of way is that to speak to your husband?
Dad, it'd be better if this twisted, old-fashioned had just left the house. Just seeing her face stresses me out.
When Emily was hit where it hurt and lost the will to retort, Jason interrupted her words, sighing in exasperation. Thinking I was finally freed from the two of them, my expression brightened with joy, and I mentally did a fist pump. Thus, I succeeded in moving away from Jason and Emily. My relocation was arranged through Tyler's introduction, and I ended up living in an apartment close to my workplace. I had discussed my family situation with Tyler in advance, and it was he who suggested that I could live in the apartment. The place is run by Tyler's wife, Martha, and her family, and they had a vacancy available. I hesitated for a moment, but honestly, the idea of living alone was daunting. Having someone nearby would be preferable. Even if Jason came to say something to me, Tyler and his team would protect me, so I was allowed to stay.
Lisa is always working hard and contributing. We should help each other out in times of need.
Please let us know if anything comes up. My husband would gladly be your bodyguard.
I struggled a lot with discussing my home situation with them. I feared getting them involved in my troubles with Jason, or that my feelings for Thomas would be dismissed. In the midst of various anxieties, Martha was the one who alleviated my fears.
Both Tyler and I know how hard you've been driven to work. You have your reasons, right? Neither Tyler nor I would ever trample on your feelings. I worry about you like family. So if you're having trouble, don't hesitate to rely on us. I want to keep supporting you for a long time.
Martha's kind and warm words made me cry and sob as I finally revealed all my circumstances to Tyler and Martha. After hearing my story, Martha embraced me. Tyler, with a stern look, crossed his arms and offered, If Lisa is okay with it, I could talk to your husband for you. Martha also said, you can always run away to our place, showing concern for my living situation. With the support of these warm-hearted people, I managed to leave the house. After that, I rarely responded to contact from Jason. They probably wanted to persuade me to return, but living with them again was out of the question. I explained the situation to Thomas and told him that we are now separated. If it comes to a divorce with Jason, there would be a division of property, and I would get a portion of the money he has saved. However, he is quite stingy when it comes to money. Despite the separation, he hasn't changed the financial arrangements for the house, and there's little chance he'll initiate a divorce. They thought everything would be fine as long as I could continue living as before. But my plan doesn't end here. 5 years later, I received a sudden call from Jason. I hesitated to answer at first, feeling a bad premonition. However, following someone's advice, I decided to take the call.
My daughter is getting married. Come to the wedding.
I answered, thinking it was something serious, only to find out that Emily was getting married in a shotgun wedding. Emily's partner owns several companies, and to my surprise, she's marrying into wealth. They want to take wedding photos in a beautiful dress before she shows too much, so the ceremony was hastily arranged. The date was set for a week later, and the ceremony was to be grand. Well, yes. Initially hesitant, I decided to attend after Thomas visited me and conveyed through a note that he agreed I should go. The note said I would explain the reason later, so I informed Jason of my attendance. He was satisfied with my agreement to attend, and ended the call without hearing the rest. What's going on, Thomas? Why do you know about Emily's wedding? After the call ended, I turned to Thomas, confronting him about how he knew this before me. In fact, just minutes before Jason's call, Thomas had informed me about the wedding. However, Thomas should have had no contact with Emily or Jason since leaving home. So why did he know about Emily's wedding before me? As I stared at him in confusion, Thomas, with a solemn expression, began to tell me a story.
Mom, could you help me with what I'm about to tell you?
Then he revealed a shocking truth to me. A week later, on the wedding day, I was dressed and waiting at the venue for Thomas's arrival.
It's been a while, but you still lack charm. You've really turned into an auntie in both body and face.
The person who appeared wasn't Thomas, but Jason, in a suit. Jason seemed to be showing off, wearing brand accessories he doesn't normally wear, and a newly tailored suit that looked very expensive.
Compared to your usual slob, you look a little decent today. It would be a shame for the mother to look tacky at her daughter's big day.
He was as tactless as ever. Being married to such a man was unbearably embarrassing. As I grew sick of his crude words, Thomas arrived and stood protectively between Jason and me.
It's been a while, Dad.
Thomas, with a friendly smile, managed not to arouse Jason's suspicion. Oblivious to any undercurrents, Jason casually suggested to Thomas,
It's been a while since we've met. How about a drink together?
Thanks. I have some people to greet first, but let's have that drink later. There's a lot to catch up on.
I did not miss the meaningful smile on Thomas's face. Jason, unaware of Thomas's demeanor, proceeded with us into the venue.
Our seats are over there. Let's go.
As we entered and the ceremony time neared, Jason urged me to sit down. But instead of responding to him, I headed towards the groom's side of the seating. Realizing this, he hastily grabbed my wrist, trying to stop me.
Where do you think you're going? I told you our seats are over there. Please don't embarrass me.
What are you even talking about? I shook off Jason's grip and shot him a cold glare. As he glared back at me, irritated.
Hi, I found you, Lisa. This way, this way.
What?
How come?
Tyler and Martha noticed me from the bride's side and called me over, pulling me away from Jason. Confused, Jason opened his mouth in astonishment, unable to comprehend the situation. Emily, seeing this, rushed over in surprise and explained,
Excuse me, she's my mother, and I think she's supposed to sit on my side, right?
With Emily's appearance in her bridal gown, the venue buzzed with confusion. Everyone's gaze turned to us, wondering what was happening.
Lisa's supposed to sit on my side. After all, I invited her.
Then David, the groom, watching the scene, stepped forward and dropped a bombshell on Emily. Emily and Jason, unable to grasp the situation, looked at David and Martha in shock. The guests at the venue, also confused by the unfolding situation, exchanged bewildered glances.
How do you know Lisa? And why is she on that side?
Well, it's natural you wouldn't know. The person you were planning to marry is my son, and Lisa has been working part-time at my shop.
What?
No kidding.
In this unexpected turn of events, Jason and Emily expressed their astonishment. It turned out that Emily's fiancé, David, was Tyler's son and the president of the company where Thomas worked. After graduating high school, David left home, self-taught in stock trading, and became a capable individual who managed his own company. Thomas admired him and took a job at his company. I was working in Tyler's store without knowing it at first, but it turned out that David and Thomas's girlfriend were childhood friends. When Thomas learned that David was getting married and found out who the bride was, he contacted me. After hearing the story, I explained everything to Tyler and his employees, and they helped set up this situation. When Thomas told me about it, I was shocked. I couldn't believe Thomas's dear friend was about to marry someone as despicable as you. At that moment, whispers spread through the crowd, starting to badmouth Emily. Emily, caught off guard and in front of the groom, tried to complain but quickly covered her mouth, forcing a stiff smile and politely responding. Emery closed her mouth impatiently, smiled awkwardly, and counted me as politely as she could.
Come on, Mom, stop with the nasty jokes here. It's making everyone uneasy.
Yeah, Lisa, there are things you should and shouldn't say.
Jason interjected with a forced smile, trying to approach me. Thomas, standing protectively in front of me, looked down on Jason with a firm demeanor, making the shorter man retreat in fear. Then, are all the harsh words you've regularly thrown at me okay to say? I counted and signaled to the venue staff, who then dimmed the lights and started playing a video. The moment the footage was shown, the color drained from Jason and Emily's faces, causing an uproar in the venue. The video displayed was from the time I lived with Jason and Emily, showing them verbally abusing and harassing me.
What is that?
Isn't that terrible? Is David's wife really like that? Is the president okay with marrying her? That seems really bad.
The room quickly filled with voices condemning Emily, and concern for the groom rose. Jason yelled at the staff to stop the video, while Emily, pale and shaken, covered her mouth with her hands.
What is the meaning of this? Are you trying to ruin Emily's happiness?
Ruin her happiness?
Thomas's voice trembled with anger, ready to confront Jason.
Did you ever care about Mom's happiness, Ho?
Oh my gosh!
Thomas, usually mild-mannered and sociable, rarely getting angry and often laughing off unpleasant things, couldn't contain his rage this time. But in this case, I, as his mother, and David, the president of Thomas Company and a dear his friend, are being hurt by Jason and Emily, two people who are irreplaceable to Thomas. Thomas could not hold back his anger. Jason, overwhelmed by Thomas's intensity, fell to the ground, trembling with fear. Emily, regaining her composure, seemed to realize she needed to break through the situation, and began to appeal to David with a tearful, pleading demeanor.
Indeed, I was a terrible daughter until Mom left the house. But I'm different now. Since finding out I was pregnant, I've learned the importance of valuing people. I've changed my heart and want to cherish you and our baby. Please believe me, you are the father of this child, so you must be prepared to raise it together, right?
Perhaps realizing it was difficult to argue against the evidence in the video, Emily showed her repentant attitude, looking up at the groom with tear-filled eyes. She is not unattractive, and seemed to genuinely believe she could turn the situation around with her tears. However, her last statement was a mistake. Thomas, with a sly smile, moved closer to Emily as if he had been waiting for her to say those words.
Changing your heart and making such an appeal is futile. Unless you show proof that David is the father of that child, no one will believe your words.
What? What are you talking about?
Emily's tears dried instantly, and she shot a cold glare at Thomas. Seizing the moment, Thomas began to corner her with a loud voice, ensuring everyone in the venue could hear.
In fact, I heard from David about how he met you and the likely date you conceived the child, among other details. But here's the strange part. He's infertile.
What?
Shocked by this unexpected turn, Emily's face registered surprise at Thomas's revelation.
I was surprised when I heard it because David consulted me about his infertility. We even researched extensively together to see if it was possible for him. You hadn't undergone surgery or treatment to father a child. But we couldn't believe it, so David took the tests again, and the results were the same. We suspected that this woman was plotting something, and when we dug deeper, it turned out to be you, Emily. It was hilarious to think you were trying to snag the president's wealth with lies.
Caught in her scheme, Emily panicked as the venue's attendees looked at her and Jason with disdain.
And guess what? We also know who got you pregnant. It turns out to be an employee from your company. What a mess, right? Especially since he's married. I happen to be good friends with the executive of your company. We often go out drinking together. He's acquainted with David and is even here today. You thought you could manipulate the situation, being involved with David, the president, right? But what a shame, Emily. You should have done your homework better. That's how you end up being caught.
Completely disadvantaged, Emily looked down in frustration, while Jason's face turned pale. Here was no way out of this situation.
You tricked me, didn't you?
No, it's not like that.
Making excuses now just makes you look pathetic. I gave Emily a stern word, still trying to make excuses. Do you know why Tyler and his son still went ahead with this wedding, despite knowing all this?
What?
What? No way?
Emily was confused, but Jason, realizing the truth, looked at me in astonishment. Yes, that's right. It was all to settle the scores with you two. I planned this with everyone.
What the hell?
David and Thomas had been aware of Emily's lies from the start. But Thomas asked David to stop canceling the wedding. Thomas, aware of the entire situation. He knew about the harassment I faced from Jason and the troubles preventing my divorce. He knew all about it and acted accordingly. I happened to find Mom's diary while you was sleeping. You had been keeping it since the day I left. His surprise visit to my new place led him to learn of my struggles. And he worked hard at his job to put me at ease as soon as possible, and even told his girlfriend about it. In the midst of these events, when David came to Thomas for advice, Thomas saw it as an opportunity, perceiving the situation as a perfect moment for revenge. The executive from Emily's company, present at the venue, upon realizing her downfall, glared at her and immediately reported the situation to the president. After a detailed discussion with Thomas, the male involved was also brought into company meetings for scrutiny. Emily, once considered a promising candidate for a managerial position, faced social and professional repercussions due to her actions and the scandal that unfolded. Jason and Emily, fully realizing the gravity of their situation, were utterly devastated and collapsed. I delivered a final statement to them. This isn't the end. The real hell starts now. Be prepared. Through these actions, Thomas and I successfully executed our long-planned revenge, leading to the spectacular termination of Emily's marriage. While I thought the guests might be inconvenienced, they seemed to be entertained, saying it was quite a show, and none blamed us for the unfolding drama. Following these events, Emily could no longer remain at her company and was dismissed along with her affair partner, marking a significant downfall in her career and personal life. Jason faced repercussions as rumors spread, leading to being ostracized by neighbors and colleagues. Unable to live comfortably, he was forced to leave town, as I heard through the grapevine. I presented him with the divorce papers as Jason was leaving town. Knowing that Jason would refuse, I hired a lawyer. I provided the lawyer with a video shown at the wedding and the testimonies acknowledging the harassment from Emily, along with the video evidence. The case went to divorce mediation, culminating in a court victory, where I was awarded $10,000 in compensation for the emotional distress I endured. Thus, tranquility returned to my life. I still work at Tyler's store. And although Thomas suggested we live together following the incident, I chose to appreciate the sentiment without acting on it. Thomas might start his own family soon, and I have people who care for me like family around me. I am okay. Live your life fully with your beloved girlfriend. I encouraged him. Smiling at both of them, they responded with bashful laughter. I will continue to rely on Tyler's support, moving forward for my happiness at last.